lives one day at a time. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. They're here to get your day going fine. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. And here's your host, Miss Kim Robinson.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to a beautiful Friday. Black Lives Matter. Welcome back to Relentless Pursuit Radio. This is Mr. Sedric. Oh man, we having a good day today so far. Y'all know how it is. You know, you find that dream, you fall in love with that dream, you chase it, and that's your relentless pursuit. So here it is. Today is Friday, August the 7th, in a beautiful year 2020. Man, last week we had a outstanding show. We talked a bit about a case for HBCUs, so much in fact that I wanted to talk a little bit more about it today. And I think that it's creed that we should actually start really talking about, because you know our wonderful institutions, which wow, it was a struggle to form them. And now we're going through a test, you know, just like life. These institutions were set up for higher education for a race of people who were denied education. I can tell you that I grew up ignorant to these facts, but before I get started, I wanted to, if I could, call your attention to a scripture I was reading earlier, and it just kind of gave my heart a little joy when I read it. And I have to admit I didn't study it much, but all I needed to do was read it one time, and I knew that since we were talking about HBCUs again, our historically black college and universities, these great institutions, y'all know how old I was before I even knew what that meant. I'm so ashamed of myself, so I'm not going to tell y'all, but let's just say I was not in junior high school, nor was I in elementary school, right? But I was reading the scripture today, and it just kind of made me think, and it wasn't just that it made me think. It kind of goes along with what we're talking about. And if you would, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up and read it for everybody, because I don't want to take all day, right? But I was reading in the book of Exodus today, and I was reading chapter 20, and it's very, very simple. I went down to verse 20. And I'm reading New King James. It just touched me. And all it says is this. And Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, for God has come to test you, and that his fear may be before you, so that you may not sin." And you know what? That word test, and I started thinking about how life tests us, right? Like think about this. Remember when you were back in school, high school, elementary, whatever, even in college, because a lot of you have gone on to higher education. But when you look back, you took tests, and you were given these tests because you had gone through certain steps. You had been taught certain things, and with these tests, you either passed or you failed. But you just couldn't get away from the tests. You had to take them, right? You know, I started thinking about that, and life works just like that. You know, when it comes to the tests of life, what we have to do and what we have to be prepared for, right? We have to be prepared for the test in advance, right? You can't wait to after the test to prepare for it. You have to prepare for it in advance. And I tell you, I thought about Matthew 7. Matthew chapter 7, I think it's verse 20. I think it started at verse 24, I believe, where basically, and I'm gonna kind of paraphrase this, but I'm gonna try to get it right. Where Jesus said, he said, a wise man built his house on the rock, right? And then the rain came, the rains and the floods, they came, and the winds, they blew and they beat on the house, right? And the house did not fall. But then on the other side, he says that a foolish man built his house on sand. Right. Y'all wonder where they got the three pigs and the wolf. You know where they got all that from, right? But anyway, it said that a foolish man built his house on the sand, and the rain descended. Right, the rain came, and then the floods came, and the winds blew on it, and then they beat on his house, and then his house fell. Oh, man. And then he says, check this. This is the part that gets me right here. He said, check this out. He said, and great was its fail, or its fall. Great was the failure of this house that was built on sand. Why was it great, right? And so I guess as I was reading today and I thought about this, I thought about the fact that the first man, he built his house on a rock because he knew, check it out, there wasn't a question about, there was no question of if, no buts, no winds. He said, a storm is going to come. That storm will come. It's just a question of when it comes, right? It's not a question of if it comes, right, or if it jumps over my. No, the storm is going to come. And then the second man, he built his house on sand because check it out. The sand was cheap. It was easy to build, right? And so when the storm came to the first man's house, he withstood it, but the second man's house failed. It just dropped. It didn't even put up much of a fight. It just dropped. Think about the education people. So I guess when I read Exodus, I started thinking, well, what's the point Jesus is trying to make here? And I think that it's just Sedric 101, but I think that your talents and your resume and your reputation, they'll get you to the top. But if you haven't built, check this, but if you haven't built strong character, you won't stay there long. I preached a sermon on that once before. You aren't going to stay on the top long. And furthermore, I want you to understand that your beliefs may be sincere in what you do, right? And all of your beliefs may line up to what other people around you think. But I'm telling you, unless they're founded on God's word, they'll all fail. And they're going to fail during the times you need them the most. So when we read in the Bible, I can think of at least 3 times that we read, the just shall live by faith. When the tests of life come, I just need y'all to understand this. You've got to be able to rise up, and then you've got to be able to say this. Say this to yourselves, if you will. I may not have all the answers, but I have proven God's character and track record, and I'm trusting him to do what he's promised in his word. Amen. Father God, thank you. We welcome you in today. Lord, bless us as we have a conversation. Bless all my brothers, my sisters, the baby brothers, the baby sisters, everybody, Father. We thank you for this beautiful day. Amen. So I just wanted to jump right out and say that, and I hope it actually touches somebody, because I'm telling you, this is where it's at. That test is coming. I don't usually look at Exodus like that, but I always try to look for the pearls in God's word. You know, the obvious is the obvious, but sometimes we can look at God's word and we kind of miss a few things. So I wanted to just run that by everybody. But as we meet here today, I got my 2 partners in crime on with me again today, here to discuss the case for HBCUs or not. We're going to add that in because not everybody's sold on HBCUs like me. I have my brother Jason. Jason, you on with me today?
Yes, sir, man. How you doing today?
Oh, man, it's a beautiful day. As you can see, I'm excited.
Good.
Yeah, good to hear. And next, we also have my brother Terry. Brother Terry, you on with me today?
Hey, Minister Sedric, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing quite well. It's been one of the days. It's been one of those days where I'm just excited. Sister Kim, y'all. I also wanted to invite you in if you want to jump in and have a little discussion with us. If you got time, feel free to come right in. I just wanted to let you know that we're rolling out the red carpet for you, okay?
Okay. I will be there. All right.
All right. Good to hear your voice. You've been having a good day as well?
I am blessed and unstoppable. Yes. Absolutely.
How
about you, my brother?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No matter what the world says, I'm more than a conqueror. We have to remind ourselves of this because sometimes the world will give us other things, Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
But,
yes, ma'am.
I'm ready for this because I went to an HBC. I'm ready for this discussion.
Oh, yeah?
You guys were on it last year. I'm mad that I lost your, blog. They had an outage, and that's what happened with the show when you guys were abruptly, they had an outage.
Oh,
and
that's what happened?
Yes, and I am excited about today, so bring it on, host.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we definitely want to talk about it. I want to start off by saying this to everybody. My case for HBCUs is a very simple one. And mostly, as I said before, I think I said last week, I was just totally oblivious to the struggles of even historically black colleges and universities being started, like to get them going. The number of people it took. The reason that Exodus passage really appealed to me because it talked about the test. Can you imagine you're a slave 1 minute, right? After the war, all of a sudden you migrate to somewhere else and you're no longer a slave. And during this whole Reconstruction period, now all of a sudden you aren't really a slave at this point. Life will test you. We all know that slaves weren't allowed to learn. They weren't allowed to learn to read, to write. They weren't allowed to do any of those things. No arithmetic. Rather than teach them how to count, they gave them a bunch of rocks and said, okay, for every person that walked through, I want you to give me a rock. You know what I'm saying? And so the slaves endured such harsh treatment. And so the formation of the black college, again, it was born out of one of life's great tests. Segregation. You can't. First off, they told them they couldn't learn. Then they said you can't learn with us, and all these other things. So, me not ever really thinking about HBCUs was born out of ignorance. So, the question I asked last week and the week before was the case for HBCUs. Why are they so important today? And as I read and I studied, I was like, wow. I started finding out stuff I didn't know. I just simply, I thought I've been a pretty good history buff, especially when it comes to black history, but I never really studied the HBCUs. So with that being said, Kimmy, Terry, Jason, I guess my question is the case for HBCUs. Why should we go there? And we established some points last week, and one of them, I believe it was Terry who mentioned it. He said that because of the seeing the black professors being taught and being around people that are just like you, how much does that really matter? I mean, like, does it matter if we're taught by a black professor or a white professor, and why? Is that so important?
For me, I can, if you don't mind, I'll start that out. It was really important to me just because to be able to have someone that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And they had already achieved it. They had already got their PhDs and their masters and things like that. And to be able to have someone that looks like you that's already achieved that, and to be able to say, hey, you can do this, that was so important to me. When I went to Kentucky State University, the HBCU, and to be able to be in a place where you were the majority, and you had people that looked just like you teaching the class was something that was really amazing. I grew up. I had a few teachers. I had maybe one or two black teachers growing up, and I didn't have those until I got to high school, and cared so much for us black students. And to be able to see that repeated when I went and got my master's was just really amazing, and I really enjoyed that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because coming back behind that, I got another question. And again, guys, feel free to take a spot on the question. But the question I have is, or the statement I want to make is having black professors or having professors that look just like you. Did they demand more of you? Were you more willing to give to those black professors? Like, how did that change your whole entire learning? I know it's great to see that they have their PhDs, they're professors, they've got careers, but I want to know about that experience as a student when I go in that class and I see this is a black professor, because I see it in the movies. Am I going to work harder? Are they going to demand more? And how does that play into getting you ready for the real world?
Wow.
Kimmy, I know you went to a HBCU. Why don't you tell us about how that really influenced you to be the best you could be?
Well, like my brother said earlier, HBCUs, they teach you differently. You see people that look like you. You see people who are fun but still excited about being a professional. You see people that you don't normally see because, back in the 90s, we were just taught MLK and Malcolm X, and to know your history, you have to be self-taught. And so with that being said, the history lied to us. They lied to us about everything. And so when I went to HBC, I learned so much information. I mean, I had white teachers at HBC. Those were the main ones there. They had white teachers, Asian teachers. It wasn't the teacher more so. It was the environment. It was just, I'm telling you, it was the best time in my life. Ever. I had the best time.
Like, what do you mean? Yeah, elaborate on that.
Like you see people that look like you. You see people that look like you and they're striving. We know that we come for greatness, but when you hear it on the news that black people is and black people has high blood pressure and black people has this, it's depressing if you watch the news. But when you're around yourself with people who are positive, you're like, that is so baloney. Not all black people steal, not all black people kill. And, it's just amazing how your reality check is changed. Because, unfortunately, I come from St. Louis, and, we're the last state. We're the slowest of everything. So, with that being said, I went to Atlanta, and I went to Morris Brown. I saw Clark Spelman, Morris Brown. Why I went to Morris Brown is because they had the first CPA there. And I saw Morehouse, I saw Spelman, ITC. So, that's why I went to HBC. It was the best.
Wow. See, because so what I'm getting from you, and this is funny because for me personally, my black college experience was, it's a different world than where you come from, but they always seem to be having a good time. It seems like, you know what I mean? It seems like they always have something going on. I'm just being honest, okay? She brought up the 90s, I brought up the 80s.
Hey, don't get me wrong now. We kissed it there, too, now. Hey.
Right.
So y'all party a little something, too, then, huh? But so if I'm trying to, my teenage daughter, which I don't have any anymore, but my teenage daughter on a historically black college, see, the things I'm going to talk about personally, I'm going to talk about, like I said, life's a test. And sometimes, like one of the things, I watched this documentary, and one of the things they said that an educated slave can be a freed slave, but an ignorant slave, it don't matter if he's free or not, they didn't care. He was still going to be a slave because he was dependent on someone else. So they made education extra tough for blacks in them days, right? And then here's a unique phrase I heard. I never heard a school call this. They called the schools that the slaves went to contraband schools, and they called the slaves who went to school contraband. Ain't that crazy? I was so amazed, and I was amazed that that's what they called them. Why would it be so important for blacks not to be educated?
Well, it's one of those type of things where if everything is written down, you don't know the laws. You don't know what you're entitled to. Things are hidden from you. They say that one of the biggest things that you can do to a black man is put it in a book. One of the best things you can do, because a lot of times it requires something more of you, which is reading. And if you don't know how to read, you don't know how to know you don't know the laws, you don't know anything. You don't know, they didn't even know that they were free. They had to depend on somebody else, to tell them. You know what I'm saying? So,
right?
Huh?
3 years. I said, especially in Texas, where I come from. 3 years later, down there in Galveston.
Right.
Give us a free. Right. Give me free 3 years. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's why it's very, very important for us to learn, and honestly, it is great for us to be able to learn those things in a HBCU environment. So
okay, so I'm gonna throw this at y'all again. So Sister Kimmy made a point to say, you know what? It's culturally diverse at an HBCU because the instructors are not just black. The professors are white and different nationalities, and so the students are different nationalities. So if I'm going to an HBCU, why is everybody so gung ho? I mean, it's only a black school in name, or in heritage, in tradition. Why is that important?
Tradition is important. Earth Brown is closed down right now, but they were known for housing runaway slaves. So there's so much culture behind the black school than just the name. And that's what we sometimes forget, that like Morehouse, Spelman, Howard beats like Harvard out of the debate. You don't hear stuff like that. Howard has a great law school. I mean, there are so many different wonderful black colleges, Xavier, Tuskegee, engineers and doctors that comes from these wonderful universities. So I'm just going to look now because you guys are on it.
Okay, thank you so much, Kimmy. But y'all, you guys just hit on it. I was going to ask, as I was looking at this documentary, one of the things I saw, one of the classes that was taught, or professions, or however I'm supposed to say it, they taught law. Why was that so important? I think you touched on it, Terry. It's because HBCUs, I believe in the pride and the heritage that comes from that and that I hear from people. I don't really believe in all the partying, but every teenager's going to party. They're going to do their thing. I get it. But they taught law. And some of our most highly educated African Americans, they come out of HBCUs. I said it last week. Our doctors, our top, back in the day, like Thurgood Marshall, our top professionals, business owners, they came out of HBCUs. And so when I was growing up thinking about a Texas Longhorn or A&M Aggie or Southern Methodist University Mustang, I completely looked over every black college because I didn't even look at them, because I didn't understand my heritage, because I was naive. And not until I started reading up on like the Jewish culture. Now this is where I really want to go with this. The case for HBCUs. I'm talking about why I believe it's important for us to send our children to historically black colleges and universities. And I'm sorry that I'm learning a little late because I could have spent my money with my kids on there. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. When you look in the Jewish culture, they have a subculture set up where they teach their children, here it is, to buy Jewish first. In other words, y'all can do business with whoever you want, but your first order of business needs to be doing business with your own. How do we teach that? How is that taught in our community?
That's taught. That's what should be taught from a very young age. But when you look as far as how should it be taught?
Yeah, because here's the reason I'm saying that. Here's the reason I'm even asking the question. I'm posing it because when we do that today in our communities and we talk loud about it, it's called racism and discrimination. It's called prejudice. It's called, I don't know what it's called because we don't really do it. So going to a HBCU, I think, can help us to understand the economy better. And when I say economy, I'm talking about our own economy. It's said, and studies have proven, the black or the African Americans in this country, check this out. We have $1 trillion in buying power. Hold on. $1 trillion, not with a B, not with an M, with a T and an R. $1 trillion in buying power, yet we own absolutely nothing in this country. Our net worth, our average net worth, is less than half that of our white counterparts. So if we go to HBCUs, and that's my theme, the case for HBCUs, why would it be important when we think about the economy of our culture? It
really would teach us, if we did those things, to create that that financial cycle, if you will. If you teach. Okay, you come out, you take care of your own, you invest in your own, you impart, those type in prayerfully as that cycle. I look at this like the gentleman, what's the businessman, the African American businessman that paid for everyone's tuition at the HBC. Is it not Johnson? I can't think of his last name. I think of his name, but right off him. But he made an investment in these kids, at this HBCU, and hopefully that's something that they will in turn do for the next people that come around to take that, to invest in them. So we create this cycle, a healthy cycle. Because that's what the Jewish community is. They created a healthy cycle. They buy from their own. They take care of their own schools. They don't. That's how they live. They've done that from the beginning. That's been taught from the very beginning. Where that wasn't taught to us. Because when you think about HBCUs were founded they were just basically trade schools. Go ahead. Talk about that. They were basically talking like Kentucky State University. That was actually it was called the State Normal School for Colored Persons when it was very first founded in 1886. Yeah, it was called the State Normal School for Colored Persons in 1886 when it was originally founded. And basically they were a land-grant school, and they only taught things like home economics, agriculture, and mechanics. That's all they taught. They didn't teach anything like engineering. They didn't teach anything like computer science. They didn't teach they just taught the basic things that help people get by, And so it wasn't so basically that was the standard. And I think in knowing our history, that was set by Booker T. Washington. The way his approach was,
go ahead.
Just teach the Negro just the basics, how to wash clothes, how to cook, labor jobs, And it wasn't until after him that did W.E.B. Du Bois and other people come along to say, hold up, we can do more than this. We're more than this, and we need to create an environment where our kids, where our families, where our young people realize their full potential, and realize that, hey, something, we can be like the Jewish culture. We can be. We don't have to resort to working for people. We can work for ourselves.
Absolutely right, but I know I'm interrupting you a little bit, but check this. Here's the thing I love is that the professors at these schools, because these schools were underdogs, especially back then, they were vested in the education of the students. Think about it. If the students didn't come to school, the school was going under. And they had a vested interest. Everything about them. Like I think about the movie, what's the movie with Denzel Washington, Terry, that you love so much? The Great Debaters or the Debaters or whatever? That's it, right?
Great Debaters.
Great Debaters. Wiley College. I'm telling you, to this day, if you go through Wiley, Texas, you'll miss that college if you don't know where it's at. You're going to miss it. You're going to be in Louisiana talking about, I thought I was in East Texas. Be like, nah, bro, you passed it. Go back about 57 miles. Right? But he had a vested interest in his students. He had something to prove. Listen, a long time ago with the slaves, they thought the slaves didn't have the brain capacity. Why is this 2020 and we got black quarterbacks in the NFL that some people say, well, they don't have the brain power to be quarterbacks in the NFL? That is crazy to me. So my next case for HBCUs, and Jason, you might be able to help me out with this one because you're the sports guy. I brag on how you can read defenses all the time. I got to tell you, before I throw the question out, before I throw it out, I got to tell you, Terry was a running back in high school. He's like this great running back. I hear from all the people here. Like, we grown men, Terry like 520 years old, right? And people still going, I remember when you played high school football. So, he was a baller when he was a football player. They remember him 500 years later, right? So, Jason is my defensive guy. I can't play no video games with him because whatever defense I set up, he knows exactly where every player is. He doesn't even have to look at the screen. I've got to look at my players and track them. He don't even track his players. He knows where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to say this. what if we sent more of our great athletes to HBCUs? I'm talking about a case for HBCUs. Now, in the next 15 minutes, Jason, Terry and Jason and Kim, we're gonna talk about the pro. We're on the pros right now. We're gonna jump on the cons. But for college athletes, do you think, or can you explain, either one of y'all, why it would be a better choice for a college athlete to go to an HBCU? Remember, I'm trying to get one of my kids to go to an HBCU.
I would tell you this. I think as we talk about the HBCU and building and growing it, you gotta know athletics is what grows a college. You know, and you gotta think about like the Alabamas of the world. They weren't big colleges until their football team got really good. Now everybody's pining to go there. So yeah, I think the extracurriculars at the school, especially the athletics, can kind of build that school up, and not just, you know, it might, I won't say build it up, but bring awareness. So now kids are going there. So now they're having a bigger population of children, of kids. Now when these kids graduate, they're becoming part of that workforce, and they get this quality education. You know, I also tell you, you know, you play sports long enough, and most of the time, like I'll tell you, I don't think I had a black coach my whole high school or college career, you know, as a head coach. You know, maybe a position coach here and there, but never in like a coordinator position or any type of high-ranking position, you know. So, you know, being coached by somebody, you know, from that on, like you say, there's always a sense of community when you're dealing in smaller environments and you have, you know, black people together. You know, like the one black coach I did have, he did treat me a little differently, but it wasn't based on, it was like, okay, we're part of a community, and we have to both recognize what we're sitting in and what we're dealing in. So from an athletic standpoint, I think, you know, if more of our, you know, top athletes go to those schools, then what you do is you build more awareness, and then you'll get more funding, and more money will start coming in, and you'll start seeing it. You know, people are afraid, like, well, I won't get to showcase my talent, you know, where I need to. Well, in some sports, it is the black talent that is all the talent. So if there's a concerted effort to go there, you know, these PWIs, they'll struggle because they won't have all the talent that they typically have.
PWIs.
Predominantly
white institutions.
Yep. Sorry about that.
You know, I got to speak English to me. I don't know all the. Okay. That makes sense. You know, again, if we can build up even our so Jason's standpoint, we build up our athletic programs. We're going to build up awareness of our schools because we start winning. We start doing the impossible, right? We bring Wiley College up to play the Texas Longhorns. I'm only saying that because I'm from Texas, and they blow out the Texas Longhorns, right? And now people have gotten awareness of Little Wiley College, who was known for the movie Great Debaters for defeating what school? Yale, Harvard in the debate. They're known not just for the academics, but for the athletics. So we need completely rounded schools, right? Well-rounded schools. Terry, you were about to say something?
No. I was going with Jason. What Jason was saying, in the sense that to be able to bring the profile. We need like as far as athletes are concerned, we need for our athletes to take that chance on going to an HBCU, and to be able to help raise the profile of those HBCUs up as something that, hey, it can be competitive here. I can go to the next level, because it was proved with the Jerry Rices. Jerry Rice went to an HBCU, and Mississippi Valley State. And he is, you know, he was best receiver in the NFL. You know, McNair, he went to Alcorn State, you know, raised the profile of these programs to where, you know, they're able to get more funding and better athletes and things of this nature. So it's proven, it's been done, but it hasn't been done on the consistent, you know, to be able to raise the profile of these HBCUs. We need the athletes to go to them. Again, like you were saying, the University of the Kentuckys and the Alabamas didn't become that way just, you know, with white players. They became that way because they started recruiting the black players from the HBCUs to go to their schools, you know. to play on their teams, and that elevated their profile. Hence, that's the reason why you have a lot of black players that want to go to the Alabamas or the University of Kentucky, because they know if I go to UK, I can get into the NBA and be one and done. I don't have to go there for you.
And I can tell you from a football standpoint, some of my Texas alumni, Texas wasn't my favorite team, but I followed them. SMU was my squad, so I got the Eric Dickersons, but then I got the Ricky Williams, who, again, and then my favorite, who didn't do good in NFL, my Vince Young, who single-handedly carried the Longhorns to a national championship. If we have athletes like that playing in some of the smaller colleges, now we're finna get to the other side of this. What does that say about the athlete? You know, that athlete goes to, again, at Tuskegee, and he's at Tuskegee. What's the benefit of him going to a Tuskegee? Why can't I talk, or why can't I get these star athletes to go to an HBCU? What's so tough about it? I'm proud to be a Black American. I'm proud of my heritage. I grew up in the hood like an Eric Dickerson. Eric Dickerson came from he was poor, from Sealy, Texas. Eric Dickerson was down there from Sealy. What's the great Adrian Peterson was from the same area, same city, I believe. Earl Campbell. I mean, we got these great athletes, the Ricky Williams of the world. We got these great athletes who from these little small podunk towns, and they want to go to these big schools. Is it just because they can make a living after college? Is it because they got a better chance of getting to the pros? So the case, why would they? What's the con to going to an HBCU other than what?
So I think you hit right on it. I think when you want to talk about some of the cons, it is that profile, and that's not just from a athletic sense. It's also from just the school itself. You know, it's interesting that if we talk, you know, Harvard's like the standard. You know, and whether it's interesting, whether you graduated Harvard with a 4.0 or a 2.0, your ability to gain wealth over your lifetime has been significantly increased just because you can put yourself, I'm graduated from that school, you know, and the reputation it has. And I think we have to start building that. And that's the thing, you know, who is going to be those first group of kids that going to go to that HBCU, you know, and then come out because, you know, they may know more and be better at their job coming out of college, coming out of HBCU, than that kid coming out of Harvard, but guess who's going to get the job, right? And it's all about the name recognition, you know. So
I have something to say about that, because you're right, and there are two recruits that a HBC gained this year, and they both were high-profile basketball. One is a basketball player, and the other one, I believe, is a football player. They went to HBC.
Yeah.
So that's going to change. It takes some time, but you're so right, my brother. That's so true. You can be a 2.0 student in Harvard, and you have a lifetime of wealth. But honestly, I'm going to be honest, I learned a lot, much more than about myself, but I learned how to study. See, one thing about the HBC, they teach you, they give you, it's so hands-on. You don't get a lot of that in the universities. So when you go to a university, you got to be ready. One thing I like about the HBCU, not only do they tear around academics, but they tear around like Black history, Black culture. So, I mean, it was just different. It wasn't all about partying by all means, but I did have fun. But I'm so sorry. You guys are just on this topic. I'm telling you, I have a passion. I'm trying to get my girls to go to an HBC, but I can't live for them. So, I'm sorry.
But I guess here's what I want to kind of capitalize on something that like you said, we've got to build on it. Just like I mentioned last week, you know, when you have Howard University, who has Thurgood Marshall, who is a United States Supreme Court justice, and you have like the University of Louisville here, they had one justice, and that's Justice Brandeis. But you know, honestly, in my mind, that's equal. But because the University of Louisville is a PWI, people look at that as, oh my gosh, they have a Supreme Court justice, you know, Justice Brandeis. That's who their law school is named after. But yet you forget that Howard University produced one of the greatest minds. Understand the history behind Howard University's establishment of their law school and how difficult that was. And then for him to come out of that, and for Justice Marshall to come out of that to be a Supreme Court justice, you'd be amazed. And I look at like the history of these athletes that came out of HBCUs, like Michael Strahan. He went to was it Texas Southern to play. You have Shannon Sharp, who went, Doug Williams, who went to Grambling. You have all these great people that went to HBCUs. But the thing about it is, like Althea Gibson, all these different people. That's such a rich history. Like I said, history, like you were saying, Kimmy. But it's about getting the new batch, these new Division I, these guys that used to they didn't look at HBCU before, to start considering them, go into them, to create new history, if you will.
And, it's interesting to hear both of y'all talk about HBCU. I went to a PWI. I mean, like the African American population in my school was like 1%. So so I've got a completely and totally different experience. But to hear you guys talk about the community and how people cared about each other, the biggest challenge we have is outside of HBCUs, fraternities, sororities, do we have that as a community? Cedric, I love what you brought up about the Jewish community and how they think and how they teach from day one. It's about, our own and building this thing up. And we have and the challenge is, how do we get that in our own community? How do we get these people who come out of HBCUs, who experience that community in college, to now go outside of college to love on the people that may not be the most educated, but to create that community so that one kid be like, man, Mr. Wilson over there, he was really nice to me, and he was telling me about this school. I kind of want to go there now, and you start fostering that community.
Jason, can I say something to that? We need to foster that, but we first got to understand where that comes from, why we don't do that. And one of the reasons why we don't do that is because we have been trained from back in slave days to really be in opposition to one another and not to foster relationships, healthy relationships, to foster growth within our community. It's been an element of distrust that has always been inbred, that was built in us during those times. If you really think about it, when you had the house nigger thought they were better than the field nigger, you know what I'm saying? And so, and there's been this distrust, and to be able so that's really hindered our ability to come together, to support one another, to encourage one another, to build together. We've developed a crab mentality, and that's really hurt us in our ability to support our HBCUs.
Right, and so for me, it's like we have to have, as a community, we have to have people to start leading that charge. And who better than the educated? Who better than the people who experienced it? To come back to that, to come back, like you said, to come back to the field and say, yeah, I've been in the house, and I understand that I utilized my position to improve myself, but now let me pour this back into you so that if you don't get the same opportunity, you can still build off of what I've already learned and grown. And how do we start building that community? And I'm challenged because I look at our current culture, and we talk about all these great people who graduate out of HBCUs, but the question is, how do we take that energy, turn it inwardly back to the community? So now, like you said, you want to talk about a case for HBCUs when the HBCUs get on the same level as the Harvard, as the Yale, as the Ivy League schools, on the black side.
But don't you think we have some that are?
They really are. They just don't get that advertisement. They don't get this advertisement as Harvard.
Right.
But see, why not? That's the ultimate question. Why not? Why aren't these schools who are academically on par even better?
White America? Can I be blunt? White America. don't want us
So
to
then how
be educated.
Right, but here's the deal. How do we take the best of us that come through these HBCUs and now start getting them in positions of power and influence? So now that, hey, white America doesn't have that big of a say-so, you know, how do we start shifting that? Because ultimately, for me, I look at college as, is it going to give me access to greater wealth and a better life than what I have today, right?
Let me tell you
what
something.
college do I choose?
I'm so sorry for cutting you off. This is so passionate. I see more like the big four firms, CPAs, law, coming to like a black career fair to recruit just blacks versus when you go to a combine with black-white, they're going to choose the white, the Asian over the black. So, yes, they do come. I've seen people from HBCUs, there are directors, CEOs, CFOs, and they pronounce their HBC, and you do see a lot of them that come back to their homecomings and things like that. Like one of my sisters, she's a director of a very big organization, and she went to Xavier. So, they recruit. They just don't say anything. Like Coca-Cola, the Pepsi, the Home Depots. I'm talking about like executive-like positions. They get high engineer firms, law firms. Even when you go to law school and medical school, like Morehouse and Spelman and Fisk and Tennessee and Howard, they're known for law and their medical school. And so, yes, you do get that. We just don't get that big media coverage because they only want to cover what black people do badly. So that's why I'm just being real. I love everyone. I am not racist. I love people, but I'm just keeping it 100. They don't want us to look good. Yeah. So that is why you don't see those things. You have to know people within those organizations.
Right. And so we all say the same thing, right? Knowledge is power. Right? We've got these HBCUs set up to give us that knowledge. But why don't we have the power? Because here's the deal. Whether they want to or not, if we empower ourselves, I did not know how much buying power we have. If every black person with $1 trillion worth of buying power decides to say, hey, Walmart, if you don't do this, we're not going to shop with you, our money will speak for us, right? So how do we gain access to that power that comes from the knowledge that we have and not have to wait for, they're not allowing it. We force the issue. We tell them, hey, no, we're united. We're not going to allow this to happen anymore. You are going to talk about HBCUs and you are going to promote them. You are going to put them up there. And if you're not, I'm just going to build my own thing and do it myself. How do we start building that? And how do we use the HBCUs? Because I agree. I truly believe knowledge is power. The more you know about a system, the more you know about the inner workings, the better you can now shape it to the outcome you want, And
Can I chime in, Jason? I want to chime in, Jason. I look at like what happened at Wilberforce University. Wilberforce University is the oldest HBCU in the country, and it's in Ohio, right across the street from Central State University, up in Xenia, Ohio. Now, when Wilberforce was about to fold, they brought in a new president, and what they did was they tapped into people that are on the board of directors for these major corporations. They have someone that sits on Walmart's board that's on Wilberforce's board now. They cleaned the board out, and they brought in they tapped into those companies to say, hey, look, we buy from you. You need to invest in us. Does that make sense? And they leveraged that. And it really, honestly, that's what saved Wilberforce. So Wilbur is still a force, but they were able to tap into they've used their leverage, if you will, to say, hey, we buy from you. Our people buy from you, but now you need to learn how to invest in us.
Right, and that means that we demand something back. But check this out. I want to just jump in real quick because I just had a thought because I was listening to what Jason was saying, and we often when we think about Black Wall Street, we only think about Tulsa, but we forget the Haiti community in Raleigh and Durham, North Carolina. We forget places like Jackson Ward, Virginia, and the reason I brought up Jackson Ward, Virginia, because at a point there was a time when it was actually it's kind of weird that it was more or less the financial capital for where blacks kept their money, right? And so with what Jason was saying, see, I think that we can get back to there, Jason, if we learn our history. You know, sometimes, and this is what they say all the time: if you don't learn from your history, it's bound to repeat itself. Well, there's some history that we need to repeat itself. We need to have, you know, to be an equal force. And again, I was talking about the Jewish community. Nobody gets mad when we got a whole bunch of stuff named after the Jewish community. The Jewish community keeps it low key. They keep it quiet, and there's no problem with that. But why can't we do the same thing? Black Wall Street in Tulsa, the reason it became so big, I was talking to Terry earlier, is because I was listening to a report, and I listened to a lot of talk radio, and this guy was saying that, check this out. He said, do you know how many times a dollar changed hands in Black Wall Street before it left the community? He said that $1 changed hands 54 times before that dollar left the community. Now, I don't know if y'all know that in Tulsa, Black Wall Street was only 40 acres. That's all it was. It was 40 acres. They didn't get no mule, but they got the 40 acres. One man came in and bought it. And they named the town itself, I think it was named Greenwood, and I think it was named after a town somewhere like in Mississippi or something. But anyway, what I'm saying, though, and how we do what you're saying, Jason, I believe in order to do that, we need to keep that $1 trillion of black buying power that we have today in our economy, which just by itself is larger than the GDP of quite a few countries in this world. If we can keep the money in the community or just push it through the community several times first, we will start to make a change. Our economic engine will start to truly churn here in America. We can start to rebuild our communities. They got a Chinatown. Why we can't have Afro Town in every state, right? Why we can't have Black Town in every state? I mean, we got Chinatowns all over the place. But I think that the only way we're going to get there is if we keep our money going through our communities first. And that's just my opinion. Because I think that when you look at the Spelman, and when you look at the Howard universities, and you look at the engineers that we're producing, you look at the doctors we're producing, how do we get those alumni who are making millions of dollars now to give back to their institutions? It's like, I believe it's like you guys were saying, boards of directors. We've got to make this work. So, I know we're getting close to our time, but I will give you guys a chance to go ahead and talk a little bit more. But Jason, I love your points. I do. Terry, I love your points. I think that though, if we get on top of our history and we stay focused on our history, change comes. Sometimes it's subtle, and sometimes God allows it to just come in like a thunderstorm. It just rains down the change, like with Black Lives Matter. I may not agree with some of it. I may not, but I may agree with all of it, or I may agree with very little of it. It doesn't matter. A change is coming, and we have to be prepared for that change. Because check this. As I said before, life will test you, and you never get tested over something that you haven't already had to study.
Right.
That's what I got out of Exodus. But as we come to a close, anybody want to have any closing comments as we come to a close? Jason,
no,
you got something else you want to say? Terry, what about you?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good. I love this conversation, man.
Yeah.
I just think that this is a topic, and I don't want to ever abandon this. But I tell y'all what we're doing is we're compiling. Man, we're gonna have one heck of a build up to Black History Month. We're gonna have one heck of a Black History Month, and then we're gonna have one heck of a post Black History Month. Right? We got so much data over here piled up. I really want to start to. I tell you what I want to start doing. I want to start getting me. I'm gonna get me a very prominent, and maybe a lesser known figure in history, but I'm gonna try to bring somebody on, or shall I say, talk about somebody who has done something in the African American community. Don't worry, I will not use Gifted Hands, Ben Carson. I apologize For anybody who's a doctor who's in that field, I won't be using him. We know enough about being cautious. No, I'm joking. I just thought I'd make a joke. But no, I want to just talk about one person every week. Start educating ourselves, and we start doing something big because y'all know why? Because this is Relentless Pursuit, right? Find something you love, right? If you find something you love, you'll never work again. So as we get ready to close out, nobody has any final comments. Sister Kim, go ahead and cue up the music. I just want to say I love you all. And find something you love. I need you to embrace it. I need you to chase it because that is your relentless pursuit. Then Minister Sedric, and I'm out of here tonight. Love you guys, and I'll see you back this time next week. Have a good weekend. God bless you.
True, too. What's up, DB? I think we're going to make them swag it out to this one. Yeah. They going to dance to this one. I can see it. Yeah. Give me some love, give me respect, give me my God, give me some space, give me your blessing. Dance like you holy, Give me some love, give me respect, give me my God, give me some space, give me your blessing. Dance like you holy, You say you're real with it, so real with it. Then you mean you're big, I'm chillin' it. Cause the dickers, you don't know who you dealing with. Show me some respect, cause I ain't cleaning with the silliness. Surrounded by the fake, you don't really get. Never compromise for some dividends. I did it before, but I never will again. Asking God for the forgiveness for my sins. I'm a child of the king, yes, I'm a child of the king. The devil can shatter my dreams, good ground is where plant my seeds, yeah. I got plenty muscle, grinding and easy hustle. Been in the struggle, been in the dungeon, but only a chick for the lunches. Homie, the road with the punches. All people perish for the lack of knowledge. Why you think we are trying to violence? College, it ain't for everybody. Some intelligence, stack your wallet. I been real, told you, I'm close like a windshield. Roll like a big wheel, spinning like windmills, and we will. Give me some love, give me respect, give me my God, give me some space, give me your blessing. Dance like you holy, Give me some love, give me respect, give me my God, give me some space, give me your blessing. Dance like you holy,
Everything they do is in love. Face you close and I can see the pose. I told you. They act so holy, act like they don't know me. Mess up my energy, offensive, religiously, unevenly yoked. They don't mix with my chemistry. Profit out of pocket, speaking in riddles all off topic. Planet starships and rockets, spinning the word bicycle sprocket. What is your option, heaven or hell? So what I dwell will I prevail. Is this journey getting close? I am a saved by the bell. Purposely ordained to carry today. Baptized in the joy and pain, not a slave, turning the pain. Toss a car, breaking the tape. Chopping it out like I get to it, ain't easy being true to all let go. Fill the room, now I'm attacking all of these. Till I can see, I think it's all needed. Like an opinion, give me a minute. Everything good come from God. So I order off to me, you bop my head like the baby. Ain't no ifs, ands, or maybe. Keep on walking in the light, while the rest be so safe. They can love me, hate me, the blood is thicker than gravy. Two on the word, better take that. Shocking, amazing grace covers the room, ready, set. Boom, he ain't dead, you heard what I said, the living bread, go check the tune. The bridegroom's returning soon, dang.
Give me some love, give me respect, give me my God, give me some space, give me your blessing. Dance like you holy, Give me some love, give me respect, give me my God, give me some space, give me your blessing. Dance like you holy,